My family threw a graduation party in my name and forgot to invite me. I thought it was a mistake until I saw what they were celebrating instead. That was the moment I finally broke. For my brother's graduation, they gave him a brand new car. A $30,000 car with a giant red bow, a party that looked like something out of a movie, and 100 people screaming his name. For mine? A $20 gift card and half-eaten cake. When I didn't say anything, my mom looked right at me and said, "Be happy we even remembered." That was the moment something inside me cracked. I took a photo of that sad little celebration, the half-melted frosting sliding off the plate, the gift card envelope sitting crooked next to it, and I left. No shouting, no tears, just this hollow silence as I walked out the door. By the time morning rolled around, my phone was buzzing nonstop. 30-something missed calls, texts, voicemails. But I couldn't bring myself to answer a single one. Because how do you even respond when your own family makes your biggest achievement feel like an inconvenience? See, my parents always said they treated us equally. No favorites, Dad would bellow, usually right before throwing his arm around my older brother Dylan after another baseball trophy. Everyone adored Dylan, the golden child, the achiever, the one who made them proud. And me? I was the quiet one. The kid who stayed out of trouble, built robots in the garage, buried himself in books. I thought being low maintenance would mean they'd appreciate me. Turns out, it just meant I was easy to forget. 3 years ago, when Dylan graduated high school, it was like the royal coronation of the family. They rented a banquet hall, balloons, banners, even a DJ. My mom sobbed happy tears, my dad was practically glowing. And when they rolled open the garage door to reveal that car, the crowd went wild. Dylan's grin said everything. I remember clapping along, pretending to be happy, while this quiet voice in my head whispered, "Okay, so this is what graduation means in our family." So last weekend, when it was my turn, when I finally walked across that stage, shaking with pride as they handed me my computer engineering degree, I thought maybe, just maybe, it was my turn to feel celebrated. Years of late nights, ramen dinners, side jobs, and exhaustion, I'd earned that moment. I texted my parents, "Hey, I'll swing by after the ceremony." They said, "Sure. We'll have something waiting for you." When I walked in, the house was quiet. Too quiet. No laughter, no decorations, just my parents at the kitchen table eating what looked like leftover grocery store cake. Half of it was already gone. Dylan was leaning against the counter, glued to his phone, barely looking up. "Surprise," my mom said, with this tight, almost sarcastic smile. Then she slid the envelope across the table. "We got you a little something. A $20 restaurant gift card. To a place I don't even like." I stood there frozen, waiting for the punchline, like maybe they'd open the garage again, reveal a real gift, say, "Gotcha." But nothing. Just that same fake smile. "Be happy we remembered," Mom said, like it was some great act of generosity. I felt my stomach drop. Anger burned through me, slow and sharp. But I didn't blow up. I just smiled, said, "Thanks," and took a photo. Then I grabbed my overnight bag, which, funny enough, I'd packed earlier that week, and walked straight out the door. Dylan didn't even glance up. My parents didn't move. That night, I signed a lease for a tiny studio apartment across town. Peeling paint, musty carpet, but it was mine. I laid out my air mattress, set my diploma on the counter, and just breathed. For the first time, the silence felt good. By morning, my phone was exploding. "Where are you? Why did you storm off? Your father's disappointed." Disappointed in me. After everything, they were the ones disappointed. Something in me shifted then. I decided I was done playing the quiet, obedient kid. Around noon, there was a sharp knock at the door, except it wasn't a knock. My mom just let herself in. I told her the address, stupidly, back when I was just talking about moving out. She stood there in my tiny kitchen, looking around like she'd walked into a dump. "This is where you ran off to?" she asked, crossing her arms. "You made your father sick with worry." I didn't even look up. "I'm fine, Mom. Clearly, you know where I am, so you don't have to worry anymore." She huffed, offended. "We wanted to celebrate you last night, but you didn't even stay for cake." I laughed, sharp, bitter, ugly. "Celebrate me? Dylan got a car and a full-blown event. I got leftover cake and a gift card. You really think that's the same thing?" Her eyes went cold. "So this is about Dylan again, huh? Life isn't about keeping score, Marvin. Your brother works hard. He deserves what he gets." "I worked hard too, Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "You just didn't notice." She muttered something about me being ungrateful, then slammed the door on her way out. The picture frame on my wall rattled. Later that afternoon, Dylan texted me a picture of him washing his car, that car, with the caption, "Don't be salty, little bro." I stared at it, jaw clenched, before blocking him. Over the next few days, I went back to grab the rest of my things. Every time, it felt heavier in that house, the silence, the tension. My dad refused to look at me. My mom barely spoke. "Dylan? Oh, he loved it." Tossing out snide comments like, "Hey, careful with the paint on my car," or, "At least Mom remembered your graduation, right?" The final straw came when I went to get my books and my 3D printer. I heard my mom on the phone, her voice low, annoyed. "I don't know what's wrong with him," she said. "He's just jealous. Always has been. Dylan would never pull something like this. Marvin's just different. Maybe this will teach him some responsibility." That word, different, cut straight through me. I stood there clutching a box until my hands shook. I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked out. That night, I got a text from my dad. "If you don't apologize to your mother, we'll reconsider the financial help for grad school." And that's when it all clicked. It was never about fairness. Never about love. It was about control, keeping me small, obedient, predictable. The quiet one who didn't make waves. But that version of me? He was gone. And my parents were about to learn that the hard way that I barely slept that night. I just lay there in my new apartment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak from the pipes. The silence was thick, almost accusing. My mind kept replaying every moment from childhood, all those little, harmless things I'd brushed off for years. The birthdays where Dylan was buried under wrapping paper and toys while I got a single envelope with a $10 bill inside. The family trips where he got the bed and I got the pull-out couch that sagged in the middle. The arguments where mom and dad would cut me off halfway through my sentence to defend him. Looking back, it was all so clear. This wasn't just about the graduation party or the gift card. It had never been about one moment. It was about a lifetime of being told, not in words, but in actions, that I was the backup plan in my own family. And now, they were trying to use money as a leash. The next morning, I made a decision. No more leverage. No more control. I drove back to their house one last time, not to pack a bag, but to cut the final thread tying me to them. My name was on one of their education accounts, something they'd supposedly set up for my grad school fund. It wasn't a lot, a few $1,000s, but it had been their favorite excuse to remind me who held the power. So, I walked into the bank, withdrew every cent, and opened a new account in my own name. No drama, no announcement. Just quiet independence. When mom found out later that day, she called me, her voice sharp and furious. You had no right to touch that money. That was for school. It still is, I said, keeping my tone calm. I just don't want it sitting under your thumb. There was a pause, just enough to feel the sting, then a hard click. She'd hung up. And that's when the family guilt campaign began. My aunt texted me first, your mom's crying her eyes out. You're being cruel. Then my grandmother left a voicemail telling me I should be the bigger person and apologize. Even Dylan got in on it, texting, you're acting dramatic, dude. You always take things too far. It hit me like a slow realization, they weren't just angry. They were rewriting the narrative. In their version, I wasn't a son who'd finally had enough. I was the villain. The ungrateful one. The problem child who turned on his loving family for no reason. And maybe, before, I would have folded. Maybe I would have called, apologized, and let them smooth it all over with a few hollow words. But not this time. This time, something in me had hardened. So I ignored them. Every text, every call, every voicemail. I went to class, went to work, came home to my little apartment, cooked dinner, and actually enjoyed the peace. Every silent day between us made me feel lighter. Freer. Until the day everything changed. It started with an Instagram story. I hadn't been invited to Dylan's belated graduation party, of course not. I'd made plans with friends that weekend to keep my mind off it. But then one of those friends posted a story at a house party, tagging the location. My parents' backyard. I tapped through the clips slowly, music thumping, people laughing, balloons, catered food. It looked exactly like Dylan's first graduation party 3 years ago. And then I saw it. A giant banner stretched across the yard. Congratulations, Dylan and Marvin. My name. On his party. The one I wasn't even invited to. My stomach twisted. My hands went cold. Before I even realized it, I was grabbing my keys, my pulse pounding in my ears. I don't even remember the drive there, just the sound of my heart and the sheer disbelief boiling in my chest. When I pulled up, the noise from the backyard was loud, laughter, music, clinking glasses. But the second I stepped through the gate, it was like someone hit mute. Every head turned. Dylan spotted me first, flashing that trademark grin. Oh, look who decided to show up, he called out, lifting his drink. We saved you some cake. I scanned the tables, and there it was, a small, pathetic cake shoved to one corner with "Congrats M" scrawled on it in slanted, uneven icing. Next to it sat a pile of envelopes, probably filled with cards and cash from family friends. The kind of thing I should have been given months ago. I turned to Mom, who was standing near the buffet holding a tray of drinks. Her face went pale. You threw my graduation party, without me? I asked, voice steady but shaking underneath. It wasn't like that, she said quickly, setting the tray down. We thought it'd be nice to combine the celebrations. Make it a family event. A family event? I repeated, my tone sharper now. You didn't even invite me. I had to find out from Instagram. Dad stepped forward, his hand raised like I was some misbehaving kid. Calm down, Marvin. We were going to tell you. When? I snapped. When it was over? People were whispering now, pretending not to stare. My face was hot, I could feel the blood pounding behind my eyes. And then Mom lost her cool. This is exactly why we didn't make a big deal out of your graduation, she said, her voice rising. You always turn everything into drama. You always make it about you. I laughed, loud, bitter, humorless. About me? It was supposed to be about me. But I guess Dylan can't have one single day without being the center of attention, huh? Dylan rolled his eyes. Here we go. Drama Marvin's back. That's when I noticed the keys. Sitting on the gift table. Shiny. Brand new. Dealership tag still dangling. My stomach dropped. No, I whispered. You didn't. Dylan picked them up with a smirk. Pretty sweet, right? Mom and Dad upgraded me, new model for grad school. The air went dead. I looked from him to my parents, to that stupid banner with both our names. And suddenly it all clicked, the cake, the banner, the cards. None of it was for me. They'd used my name, my milestone, just to throw another party for Dylan. To make themselves look like the kind of parents who celebrate both their boys equally. And then Mom said the thing that ended it all. "You could have had a nice day too, Marvin," she said coldly. "But you made this difficult. You're the one who moved out. You're the one who's been avoiding us. This is what happens when you separate yourself from family." Separate myself? As if I hadn't been pushed aside for years. Something inside me just went quiet. Like a final switch flipped off. I walked over to that little cake, the one with "Congrats M" scribbled on top, and set it gently back down on the table. Then I turned to face everyone. "Congratulations, Dylan," I said clearly, my voice steady but loud enough for the whole yard to hear. "Enjoy your new car." Then I looked straight at my parents. "And Mom, Dad, don't ever use my name to make yourselves look good again." And with that, I walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't listen to the whispers, the fake laughs, or my dad shouting after me. That was the day I stopped being the quiet one. The day I stopped asking for a seat at a table that was never set for me. I got back in my car and drove, but the world outside the windshield barely registered. The road blurred, the lights smeared, and the silence in the car pressed down like a weight. By the time I reached my apartment, my hands ached from gripping the steering wheel so hard. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat on the floor, back against the wall, the glow from my phone lighting up the room with a steady stream of notifications. Group chat messages from relatives: "We heard you caused a scene. Marvin, was that really necessary?" Text from my mom: "You embarrassed us. Grow up." And, of course, Dylan's smug little cherry on top: "Thanks for making my party memorable." I turned the phone off and tossed it face down on the carpet. That night, lying on my air mattress with the hum of the fridge in the background, something shifted in me. For years, I'd told myself I could handle their favoritism. That if I stayed quiet long enough, I'd build up a tolerance, like a callus on my heart. But seeing my name on that banner, my name used as a decoration at a party I wasn't even invited to, it cut deeper than anything before. And staring at the ceiling in that dim little apartment, I finally let myself see it for what it was. This wasn't favoritism. This was a blade. They didn't just forget to celebrate me. They wanted me as a prop, the silent background character who made Dylan's spotlight look brighter. That was the night I stopped caring about keeping the peace. That was the night I decided, if they wanted a separation from me, I was going to give them one they'd never forget. The next morning, the weight was still there, heavier than ever. My apartment felt smaller somehow. The air mattress creaked as I sat up. For a split second, doubt flickered. Had I gone too far? Maybe they were right. Maybe I was being dramatic. But then I remembered the banner. Dylan's grin. My mom's cold, cutting words: "This is what happens when you separate yourself from the family." As if my pain was some punishment I'd earned. No. Not anymore. I got up, made coffee, and stared out the window while the steam rose from the mug. For days, I spoke to almost no one. Class. Part-time job. Microwave dinner. Bed. No music. No TV. Just silence. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life, drifting through my routine with this quiet resolve building inside me. One night, a package got delivered to my parents' house by mistake. It was after 9 p.m., but I figured if I was quick, I could grab it and leave without a scene. In the driveway, Dylan's new car sat under the streetlight, gleaming like a trophy. I stopped and stared at it. It wasn't about the car, not really, but it was everything the car stood for. Every trip where I got the pull-out couch, every birthday where he got the pile of gifts, every time they chose him before I even finished explaining myself. Inside, the smell of a home-cooked dinner drifted out of the kitchen. My mom was at the sink. When she saw me, her face pinched like she'd just tasted something bitter. "You could have called first," she said without looking up from the water. "I just came for my package," I replied, voice flat. She dried her hands, crossed her arms. "You know, Marvin, if you just apologize, all of this could go away. Your father and I have tried to be patient, but this silent treatment is getting ridiculous." I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Silent treatment? Mom, I'm not giving you the silent treatment. I'm done playing along." "Playing along with what?" she snapped. "With this." I gestured around the kitchen, the spotless counters, the familiar walls. "Pretending everything's fine. Pretending I'm not the second choice every single time. You didn't even invite me to my own graduation party." Her expression didn't soften. Not even a flicker. "You made that decision when you walked out after your ceremony. Actions have consequences, Marvin. You could have stayed. You could have celebrated with us. But you made your choice." Something in me just shut off. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I guess I did." I grabbed my package and walked out, ignoring her voice calling after me. That was the last time I stepped foot in that house for weeks. The loneliness got worse before it got better. My grandparents called, their voices heavy with disappointment. My aunt posted a passive-aggressive Facebook status about kids these days forgetting family. Even people I barely knew sent messages asking if the rumors were true, that I'd stormed out, cut myself off. I threw myself into work. Picked up extra shifts just to stay busy. The pay wasn't great, but it kept me from spiraling. I cooked cheap meals, skipped nights out, saved every dollar. I told myself it was for grad school, but deep down I knew it was about building a life that didn't rely on their approval or their money. On the nights I wasn't working, I started researching. Not just grad programs, but real jobs. Jobs that could get me on my own feet faster. Hours scrolling job boards, rewriting my resume, sending applications. I didn't tell a soul. And slowly, something inside me shifted. One night after a brutal shift, I came home to find a letter slipped under my door. It was from my dad. I sat on the floor under the yellow glow of my cheap lamp and read it. It wasn't an apology. It was a lecture about family respect. About how they'd done everything for me and I'd humiliated them. It ended with a warning. If you continue down this path, don't expect our support when you need it most. I set the letter down, stared at it for a long time, and then it hit me like a cold wave. I didn't need their support. Not anymore. The thought was terrifying and freeing at the same time. My hands were trembling, but my mind felt strangely clear. That night, I opened my laptop and filled out 3 more job applications. I started looking at apartments closer to downtown. Not to move yet, just to picture the next step. And then I started writing. Every slight. Every unfair moment. Every time they'd used money or guilt to keep me in line. Not to stew, but to build a record, proof for myself of why I couldn't go back and pretend. The list got long. Longer than I'd expected. It wasn't just the party. It was years of small cuts, years of being told to be the bigger person, of watching Dylan praised for things I'd done first but quieter, years of maybe next year when I asked for something that magically appeared for him. The more I wrote, the more something inside me solidified. This wasn't about surviving anymore. This was about taking control of my story. Because if I didn't, they were going to keep writing it for me, painting me as the problem. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew one thing: I wasn't going to stay on the outside looking in forever. And just as I started to feel steady again, something happened. Something that pushed me from quiet planning into action. Something that made it crystal clear they weren't done trying to pull me back under their thumb. Things didn't change overnight. Healing never does. But little by little, I could feel the fog lifting, like I was finally stepping out of a room I hadn't realized was filled with smoke. It started with one small win, a job application turning into an interview. I sat across from the recruiter in a too-bright office, palms slick with sweat, rehearsing answers in my head while pretending to look confident. For once, I didn't let the fear of failure choke me. And 2 weeks later, there it was in my inbox, an offer letter. Junior developer at a local tech startup. Full-time. Benefits. PTO. Health insurance. Even a stipend for continuing education. It wasn't some dream salary, but it was mine. It was earned. When I read that email, I didn't call my parents. I didn't post it online. I just sat there in the quiet of my apartment and laughed, not out of joy exactly, but relief. A low, tired laugh that came from somewhere deep in my chest. That moment felt like the first brick in a wall between their control and my future. The job changed everything. I started waking up early, making breakfast instead of skipping it. I biked to work instead of praying my old car would start. My apartment began to transform, piece by piece. The air mattress became a real bed. I found a secondhand couch that didn't sag in the middle. I hung my diploma on the wall, not as a decoration, but as proof of everything I'd built on my own. For the first time, the space didn't feel like a hiding spot. It felt like home. And inside, something else started shifting, too. I still had bad days, moments where a family photo would pop up on social media and I'd feel that familiar ache, that whisper of you're missing something. But it didn't consume me anymore. The silence from my parents became comforting. It meant peace. No guilt trips, no manipulation, no one dangling help over my head like a leash. Dylan, of course, couldn't resist. He'd send me pictures, him on vacation, him with a new gadget, him standing proudly next to that new car, usually with a comment like, "Hope your little studio's treating you well, bro." I stopped replying. Then I stopped opening them altogether. The more distance I put between us, the clearer everything became. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the problem. I was just finally refusing to play the role they'd written for me. 6 months in, I got a raise. Nothing huge, but enough to make me feel like I was finally moving forward. I opened a savings account just for that money, watching the balance rise a few dollars at a time. It was slow, but it was mine. Every cent represented independence, proof that I didn't need their approval or their money to stand on my own. And with that stability came confidence. I started saying yes more. Dinner invites from coworkers. Weekend hikes. Joining a local robotics club. At first, it felt awkward, like I was borrowing someone else's life. But slowly, these people became my circle. Friends who didn't know me as Dylan's brother or my parents' quiet kid. They knew me. Marvin, the guy who built a working drone from spare parts, who stayed late to debug broken code, who had thoughts worth listening to. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. One Friday, my manager called me into her office. I thought maybe I'd done something wrong, but instead, she smiled. She said she'd noticed my work ethic, my focus, how I handled problems most people would have given up on. There was an opening on a major project, a big one, and she wanted me on it. It came with a raise, travel, new responsibilities. The kind of opportunity people twice my age were fighting for. I said yes before she even finished her sentence. The next few weeks were chaos in the best way. Long hours, new systems, late-night coffee runs, and meetings where my ideas actually mattered. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. Somewhere along the line, I stopped checking my phone for messages from my parents. The guilt, the pressure, it all started to fade. When my mom finally texted asking if I was coming to Dylan's birthday dinner, I just set my phone down and kept working. No anger. No sadness. Just calm. Freedom. The real turning point, though, wasn't external. It was internal. One night, I came home after work, sat on my couch with my old notebook, and flipped open to the list I'd started months ago, every slight, every manipulation, every time they'd made me feel small. I added the latest offense, throwing my graduation party without inviting me. Then I put the pen down and stared at the page. For the first time, it didn't just look like a list of pain. It looked like evidence. Because I realized something, my parents still thought I'd come crawling back one day. They thought this was a phase. that I'd hit a wall and beg for their help. They were waiting for that call. But that call was never coming. And the more I thought about it, the more it burned in my chest, not anger, not spite, but a cold, clear resolve. I didn't just want to move on quietly. I wanted them to see me move on. I wanted them to watch me succeed, watch me build a life they couldn't take credit for, and feel the loss of the son they thought they could keep under their thumb. That was the first night I started thinking about revenge. Not petty, screaming, destroy your car revenge. No. This was going to be quiet. Calculated. Poetic. Something that would make them stop and realize they couldn't rewrite my story anymore. I didn't know how yet, but I could feel it coming. Every paycheck, every project, every ounce of progress was building toward something. And then, just as life was settling into peace, they found a new way to drag me back. It was an ordinary Thursday afternoon. I'd just wrapped up a meeting and was heading out for a late lunch when my phone buzzed. A text from my aunt, the only relative who'd ever treated me like an equal. Hey Marvin, just a heads up, your mom was talking at dinner last night. She's putting together a family fund for Dylan's grad school tuition. Said you already took your share early and left them in the lurch. Figured you'd want to know. I froze on the sidewalk, the hum of traffic fading into the background. My share? The money I'd withdrawn months ago had been mine, in my name. But of course, they were spinning it. Telling everyone I'd taken what didn't belong to me. At first, I was just angry. Angry that they were still talking about me, still painting me as the selfish one. But then, a thought hit me. If they were creating a fund for Dylan's tuition, that meant there was a real account somewhere. Something new, or maybe something I didn't know I still had access to. That night, I sat down with my laptop and started digging. Old emails, paperwork, whatever I could find. And there it was, an email from almost a year ago. My parents had CC'd me when they opened a family education account. At the time, I'd skimmed it and moved on. But now, reading it carefully, I noticed something they probably hadn't thought about. They'd listed me as a secondary account holder. I felt my pulse quicken as I logged in using the old credentials. The screen loaded, and the number staring back made me sit back in my chair. It wasn't millions, but it was significant. Enough to cover Dylan's grad school tuition, plus more. For a long time, I just sat there in silence. For years, they'd used money to control me, to dictate my choices, to pull my strings. But now, the strings were in my hands. And that night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them weaponize that money ever again. Not against me. Not against anyone.